I am going to concede a little bit of my time here, and I want to ask you, gentlemen, how we feel both about the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal and the Until Dawn trailer. And before you go, all I will say is I don't have a whole lot of thoughts on the Switch 2, except that I need to see more before I can really get into that, although a new Mario Kart is awesome. But as far as the Until Dawn movie, I know why they called it Until Dawn, because it's Sony Pictures and they own the rights to that game, but really it should have been called Dark Pictures, named after Supermassive's other franchise, because that's what it really is.
I agree with that, yes.
Because apparently the premise of this is every time they die, they wake up in a different horror genre. What I think it is they're trapped in this house on a time loop with that magic clock, and when they die, they respawn and have to try again against a different type of enemy. And there are, from the trailer, it does look like there are Wendigos in it.
Yes.
And but it also looks like there's other things too, like an old cackling witch thing and a bunch of other stuff and a mass killer. So it's a lot of the same enemies. A lot of the fake enemies from Until Dawn made into reality here, but I do think that it would have been better served as Dark Pictures, but Until Dawn is going to get butts and seats, you know what I mean? So it's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
I think they also alienated some people by calling it that and then making it a different thing, only loosely inspired but not actually based on. That being said, I'm glad they're doing what they're doing, because there's no way to do a direct adaptation of that game and do it correctly without calling one of the paths canonical, and that defeats the whole purpose of the game.
So all I'm gonna say about this trailer is, because Until Dawn is my favorite game of all fucking time.
Even over the Sega Genesis classic Booger Man?
Yes. Yes. I will say, if there's not at least some hint, or I'm really hoping it's canonical. I'm really fucking hoping it is, because if it's not, I'm going to shit all over it.
I don't expect this movie to be canonical to the game universe. I expect it to be a loose adaptation based on... This movie isn't based on the game's story, it's based on the game's mechanics. They took the idea of the gameplay mechanics behind Until Dawn and made that into a movie, is what happened here.
Got it.
I can tell by the trailer. This is a choose-your-own-adventure, the movie.
Oh, jeez.
Kinda. Sort of. They took the death and respawn mechanic, you know, in a way it's like secret level.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I see, because what I was saying is I'm actually glad that I think it's not a direct adaptation of the movie. I don't think you can do that. Or the game, I'm sorry. I don't think there's a right way to do that. Not with the way that game plays.
No.
Because they would have to choose, because no matter what, people are going to be pissed. No matter how they did that, because they would have to choose who lives and dies, and it would be too predictable too. Since Sam and what's his nuts, Mike, have the plot armor, they would be the ones to survive to the end of the movie. Sam would be the final girl. Mike would probably die at the very end. It's formulaic. Until Dawn is formulaic on purpose, and that makes for a great game because it's a love letter to everything that came before it, but it doesn't make for a great movie unless you do it like Cabin in the Woods, where it's purposely tongue-in-cheek and satirical, where this is not. This is more like they're taking the idea of the gameplay mechanics and turning that into a movie, so really it should have been called Dark Pictures, I can understand why it's not.
That makes sense.
You know. What are your thoughts on this, Brooksy?
You know, honestly, because what's funny is I actually didn't watch the Until Dawn trailer until yesterday. I saw that it was announced, and I'm like, okay, I love Until Dawn. It's, you know, anytime there's ever like a horror game, my wife and I will always sit and play together, and I make her make all the decisions, so she has to live with the guilt. And
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I enjoyed the trailer. I fully agree. I wish that they had not called it Until Dawn. I wish they had called it like, a dark anthology series or a dark picture, something that wasn't Until Dawn. But it is it's an eye-catching name for people that aren't familiar with the franchise, and for people that are familiar with the franchise, they resonate with that name. Um, but I struggle with the excitement of it, just because it isn't Until Dawn. Like it has bits and pieces of it, but so does everything in Dark Anthology. And
Yes.
if anything, it makes me personally a little worried because I know that Sony is trying to really getting their hat into like the Sony cinematic universe with announcing the Helldivers movie, with announcing the Horizon Zero Dawn movie, and Horizon Zero
Yeah.
Dawn's got a pretty straightforward story, so I don't think that'll deviate a lot. But so did Uncharted, and
Helldivers
we
should
all
be.
know how the Uncharted movie went.
Yeah, I just want to say about Helldivers real quick. One, that movie already exists, and it's called Starship Troopers.
Yeah,
Two,
I agree with you.
and two, it should be a TV show, not a movie.
I agree. I fully agree with you on that. And that's the thing is, like, honestly, if I even have just like a spiritual successor to Starship Troopers, I'll be happy with it. And because that's the thing is, they can kind of play around with that story and make it its own, and it's not gonna like upset people. I think of all of the movie concepts they've announced, that's the one I feel most excited about. And that's coming from someone who hasn't even played Helldivers 2 because I'm normally not an online gamer. So I'm excited, but I'm not like, oh, I have to go see this the second it comes out. The Switch 2, I honestly I am excited, not because it's the Switch 2. I'm just excited to finally get some new games that are not remakes. Like, I am
Yeah.
so excited to finally get some new games that are not remakes. I know that we're waiting on the specs, and I mean, it's been 7 years. There has to be some form of a noticeable bump in performance and everything else. I know the leaks have been saying things like, plays like a PS4 or PS4 Pro,
Yep.
and if that's the if
Yeah.
that's the case, like, I will be completely fine with. I will be completely happy with that.
That's
Because
an
I mean,
upgrade because the current Switch is basically mobile phone hardware.
it really honestly is. So I'm excited in that regard. It's essentially going to be a Steam Deck that plays only Nintendo games, but I'm fine with that.
Yes.
I'm completely fine with that. The only and there are some certain things that they've teased a little bit, like the way that the Joy-Con you can kind of tilt on its side, and people are alluding that it may work like a mouse. And if that's the case,
Yes.
I'm excited to see how that'll play out in specific games, because I'm assuming it'll be like kind of like what we had like 1-2 Switch, or beforehand with Wii, like Wii Sports. Like, there's going to be a game that uses that mechanic specifically for something, and I'm excited to see what that'll be. My only concern,
Or it could be implemented into third-party games like Sims 4, for example.
yeah,
Or like
that would be really cool,
or like
like Stardew Valley or something.
Yeah, or like Monkey Island point and click adventure style games like that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I would be so down for something like that. The only concern I have, and it really just boils down to how I'm so scared of how the Joy-Cons will attach to the Switch 2 itself, because it is that insert click, and from what leaks have shown, there's also like some kind of magnetized effect to it to help kind of reinforce it. But what I'm afraid of is, for me personally, I live in a home that is myself and my wife, another couple, and of the other couple, they have a few kids that come over every other weekend, a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. I am so terrified of like letting the 6-year-old play with the game or play with the console and get pissed at something and like just like rage, kind of like bend the Joy-Cons,
Ooh.
which will render the Joy-Cons and potentially the Switch 2 itself a little useless. So I'm curious how reinforced it is, how strong it actually is, because that's my first thing is like, if someone's gets gets blue shelled right at the last second of this new Mario Kart game, and kind of rages for half a second. Like, are we going to destroy an entire new console? Like, so that's the only thing I'm worried about. But I'm more excited to see new titles than I am to see the Switch 2. And the only way for me to get new titles is to have the Switch 2. So for that regard, like,
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
excited, but it is the most lackluster Nintendo announcement we've ever had.
I'm expecting to hear more about it around Summer Game Fest time this year, because it is supposed to come out this year, apparently. So I'm expecting.
Yeah.
The leaks say it's going to be $400, and they also say that they're cutting costs by going back to an LCD screen instead of OLED this time around.
Okay.
Which is
That's fine.
kind of like but whatever, you know. The only other thing I have to say on the Switch 2 is just that I'm gonna predict now that Metroid Prime 4 is a launch title, and
Probably,
also the new Mario Kart that they showed off, because that's definitely a new Mario Kart. They didn't confirm it, but if you look at the footage that was in that trailer, there's new, the item boxes look different. Donkey Kong's design is from the Super Mario Brothers movie instead of his usual design, and stuff like that other people have pointed out. So it's definitely a new Mario Kart, no doubt about
absolutely.
it. Which I'm excited for. Also, do you think, though, because it's going to be backwards compatible, they said, so you can play your regular Switch games on the Switch too, so I imagine a lot of trade-ins for credit towards the new one. Do you think, though, that it'll be forwards compatible in any way? Like, do you think they're going to do like PlayStation usually does and keep making games for both systems for the first couple of years?
Yeah, I think they might take a page out of PlayStation's book for that one.
Like, for example, when the Nintendo Switch came out, we had Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild both on the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. So do you think they're going to still do cross-gen releases for a while, or just move forward completely?
Oh, I'm sure they're going to do cross-gen releases for a while.
I don't know, because you have to think, like, this is a console that for the first time in a while since I think like the 3DS, it's fully backwards compatible. There's only just like a few there's a few titles that aren't going to transfer. And I think the reason why they haven't been doing a lot of new titles is because of anticipation for the Switch 2. So I think like maybe the first couple of titles that they announce, but like Mario Kart, like you can see in like the trailer, or not really trailer, the little tease that they gave us, like there's 24 tracks and there's going to be a whole online thing set up for it. And I don't think that the Switch is frankly just strong enough to be able to hold it.
That's a fair point.
I wasn't asking if the Switch would be able to play, if the Switch would be able to play Switch 2 games, but more like, you know how like God of War 2018, they released a God of War Ragnarok, they released a PS4 and PS5 version. Like, Spider-Man Miles Morales, there was a PS4 and PS5 version. It's just that the PS4 version was dumbed down. And a lot of people argue that the newer versions are held back by them doing two different versions. I don't really feel that way, because I think the difference between PS4 and 5 of games like Miles Morales is night and day, especially if you have HDR on. But
yeah,
that's just me. Maybe I don't know. I noticed these things, but so I was wondering if they're gonna be like, you know, like I said, Breath of the Wild, they released a Wii U and Switch version. Are they going to be releasing Switch and Switch 2 versions of games, like two different versions, for the first couple of years?
Probably, yeah.
I think I don't think it'll be as much as the Wii U was, just because I think that they took such a fat L off the Wii U. They were trying to do anything to try to push it. So I don't think it'll be as much, but I can see them doing some titles.
I mean, the PS5 has been out for, 4 years now, and PlayStation is still releasing PS4 versions of some games.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's fair.
You know, like, I was surprised as hell to find out that I think Metaphor ReFantasio has a PS4 version.
Oh.
Is it really?
I could be wrong. But I know there was something
Let me fact check that.
a lot of indie games get PS4 versions that they come out, and actually, if you buy one version, you get both. So, like there's a lot of games I've bought. Yeah, and even on the PlayStation Plus, like extra tier, those PS1 classics, PSP classics they keep putting out, there's PS5 and PS4 versions.
Oh, okay.
Metaphor Refantasio does have a PS4 copy.
Yep, see? I was right. Yeah, and that's not an exclusive, though, so that's maybe a bad example, but still, the fact is they're still making games for last gen, 4 years into the current gen. So that's why I was thinking, because a lot of, it's also probably because they realized that PS5 was so hard to get a hold of at first, so, but yeah. And then, yeah, only other last thing is, yeah, again, on the subject of Until Dawn, like you guys said, I think I might be one of the few people that's actually excited that it's not the game and in movie form, quite frankly. I don't think I wanted that, and I think the fact that it's not that makes me happy, but I think the best way to enjoy this is to go into it looking at it as a original horror movie loosely based on supermassive games. Is probably the right way to look at it. I would look at it more as like an entry in the Dark Pictures anthology series than a direct adaptation of Until Dawn. I think if this was just a regular standalone horror movie that wasn't based on a game and had a different name but the exact same story and concept, people would be excited for it because it's an original concept for a horror movie. It's just that the fact that it's tied to the name of a popular game is going to cause some issues. What I'm gonna call unfair judgment on it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to be nuanced, and I'm gonna go into it not looking at it as an adaptation of the game, but more as a more of an inspired by the game horror movie.
Okay, if I could, I'd probably do the same thing. Because it
does look like a genuinely good horror movie.
It does.
Just calling it Until Dawn hurts it.
Calling it Until Dawn was unfair. That's just to put asses in seats.
It is.
Your ass is going to be seated.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that for him, the name of it had him sold from the beginning.
Yeah.
Me, I wasn't sold until I saw the trailer. Now that I know what they're actually doing, now I'm more excited for it. See, I had the opposite reaction to everyone else.
I'm gonna go into it with my expectations tempered. I'm also going to go into it with that same mentality, looking at it as a loosely based on instead of an actual adaptation.
Very loosely. That way, that there's Wendigos and they have to survive until dawn. That's about the only similarity.
So that way I don't disappoint myself too much.
This clip was brought to you by The Overcast, the official podcast of Oversoul Gaming, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all your favorite podcast platforms.